Life is a journey of discovery, and one of the greatest revelations we must come to understand is that we are not the authors of our destiny. There is a plan for each of us, a divine blueprint laid out long before we even took our first breath. And though we may try to shape our future according to our desires and ambitions, there comes a time when we must learn to surrender to a greater plan, a plan that transcends our own understanding. You see, we often measure success by what we can achieve on our own, but true success is found in alignment with the purpose for which we were created. God knows the purpose of your life better than you do. He knows the beginning, the end, and everything in between. And while we may not always understand the path He takes us on, His plan is perfect. His timing is flawless. Our job is to trust Him. In life, setbacks are inevitable. You may find yourself in situations that seem to contradict the very promises you've been holding on to. But these moments are not to be feared. They are part of the preparation process. God often uses difficulties to develop the strength, wisdom, and endurance you'll need for the future. Trust that the delay is not denial, it's part of the journey. He is aligning things in His perfect timing, not just for you, but for all the elements that are part of His bigger picture. When you face challenges, it's easy to become frustrated or disillusioned. But remember, these challenges are designed to develop your character. The same way gold is refined by fire, your trials refine you, preparing you for the greatness that lies ahead. God's plan is never to harm you, but to shape you for the destiny He has prepared. Trust that every trial, every obstacle is building something in you that could not be built otherwise. There are times when doors will close and it may feel like a dream has died. But a closed door is often God's way of redirecting you to something better. He sees the full picture, and when He says no, it's because He has a greater yes waiting for you. Trust that when a door closes, it's for your protection and redirection. Don't dwell on the disappointment. Instead, focus on the fact that God has something greater in store. Trusting in God's plan also means taking action in faith. It's not about sitting back and waiting for things to happen. It's about stepping out even when the path is unclear. God's plan requires your participation. When He gives you a vision, He will also give you the provision to fulfill it, but you must be willing to move forward even when the way ahead seems uncertain. Finally, always remember that God's plan is for your good. Even in the most difficult seasons, He is working everything out for your benefit. It may not always feel comfortable, and it may not always make sense in the moment, but hindsight will show you that every step was necessary. Trust in the process, trust in His timing, and trust that His plan is leading you toward the fulfillment of your purpose. We often have our own ideas about what life should look like. We create plans, set goals, and chart a course for success based on what we believe is best for us. But there's a reality we must confront. Our perspective is limited. We see only what's in front of us, what we desire in the moment, and the paths that seem clear based on our current understanding. Yet there is a higher perspective, a broader view that only God possesses. God's plan is greater than anything we could ever design for ourselves. He sees the bigger picture, not just where you are today, but where you need to be tomorrow, next year, and for the rest of your life. While we make plans based on immediate needs or short-term success, God is orchestrating something far beyond what we can imagine. His plan takes into account not only our desires, but the fulfillment of our purpose, the purpose for which we were created. When we limit ourselves to our own understanding, we risk settling for less than what God has intended. Our human nature is to look for comfort, security, and the quickest path to success. But God's plan often requires us to step into the unknown, to face challenges we didn't anticipate, and to endure seasons of waiting. These things may feel like delays, but in reality, they are divine appointments. God is aligning everything according to His will, not just for you, but for those around you, because His plan is interconnected. It's easy to get frustrated when things don't go according to our plan. We pray for a breakthrough, but when it doesn't come on our timeline, we start questioning if we miss something. But what we often fail to realize is that God's plan is already in motion, even when we can't see it. He's not just preparing a blessing for you, he's preparing you for the blessing. That's the beauty of his plan. Every step, every delay, every obstacle is part of a process designed to take you to a place you wouldn't have reached on your own. God's plan is always greater because it's not limited by time, circumstances, or human understanding. While we see obstacles, God sees opportunities for growth. While we focus on what's in front of us, God sees the full journey. The key is trusting that his plan is far better than anything we could design because his purpose for us exceeds our own ambitions. Setbacks are a natural part of life, but we often view them as failures or disappointments. We work hard, pursue our goals with passion, and expect that things will go smoothly if we are on the right path. But then something happens, an unexpected obstacle, a delay, or a door that suddenly closes. In those moments, it's easy to feel frustrated and disheartened. We may even begin to question whether we are moving in the right direction. However, what we must understand is that setbacks are not the end of the road. In fact, they are often a crucial part of God's preparation process. God uses setbacks as stepping stones to prepare us for greater things. Just because something doesn't happen when we expect it to doesn't mean it won't happen. A setback is often God's way of refining you, developing the strength, wisdom, and endurance you'll need for the next level. We may see a delay, but God sees development. He is not just concerned about what you accomplish, but who you become in the process. The obstacles you face are shaping you for the future. The lessons you learn during times of difficulty are what equip you to handle the blessings and responsibilities that are coming. God's preparation is intentional. Nothing is wasted in his plan. Every setback is a setup for something greater. But this preparation requires patience and trust. When things don't go as planned, we're tempted to take matters into our own hands, to force outcomes, or to abandon the course altogether. But God's way is always better. He knows exactly what you need to fulfill your purpose. And sometimes that means going through a period of waiting or facing challenges that seem insurmountable. These moments are where real growth happens. It's in the midst of setbacks that our faith is strengthened and our character is refined. God is always preparing us for what he has prepared for us. The problem is that we often want the destination without the process. But the process is where God does his greatest work in us. Setbacks teach us perseverance, patience, and humility. They remind us that we are not in control, but that we serve a God who holds everything in his hands. When we learn to trust his process, we begin to see setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities for growth and preparation. What looks like a step backward is often God positioning you for a leap forward. Timing is everything when it comes to fulfilling God's plan for your life. We live in a world that glorifies instant success, immediate gratification, and the rush to achieve. But God operates on a different timeline. His timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own. We may feel like we're ready for what we've been praying for, but God sees what we don't. He knows what lies ahead and when the right moment will come. The challenge for us is to trust in his timing, especially when we don't understand the delays. God's timing is not just about when things happen, it's about making sure that when they do happen, everything is in its rightful place. He knows that giving you something too soon could overwhelm you, while giving it too late could cause you to miss out on its full potential. Timing in God's eyes is about preparation. He is not just preparing the blessing for you, he is preparing you for the blessing. There's a level of growth, maturity, and development that must take place before we can fully step into the promises he has for us. We often struggle with the waiting period because it feels like nothing is happening. But during these times, God is at work behind the scenes, orchestrating events, aligning people, and preparing circumstances to ensure that everything falls into place at the right moment. His timing involves not only your readiness, but also the readiness of everything else connected to your purpose. What you're waiting for may also be waiting for the right conditions to be fulfilled, the right people to be in place, or even the right opportunity to arise. Trusting God's timing requires faith. It means believing that even when you can't see progress, he is still working. It's easy to become anxious when things don't happen according to our expectations. But anxiety is a sign that we've forgotten who controls time itself. God is not in a hurry, and neither should we be. His timing takes into account things we cannot possibly see or comprehend. Sometimes a delay is not just about you, it's about making sure everything around you is perfectly aligned for what's to come. He knows the best moment for your breakthrough, and that moment is often beyond our limited understanding. Waiting on God's timing also teaches us patience and trust. In the waiting, our faith is tested and our dependence on God is deepened. It is in these seasons of waiting that we are reminded that we are not the authors of our own destiny. We are part of a divine plan that unfolds in its own time, and our role is to trust that when the time is right, God will open the doors that no one can shut. Patience and faith are at the core of trusting God's plan. We live in a world that pushes us to act quickly, to pursue what we want without delay. But God's ways are different. He often asks us to slow down, to wait, and to trust Him through seasons where it feels like nothing is happening. Patience is not just about waiting, it's about how we wait. It's the attitude of our hearts during the process that matters. We may be tempted to rush ahead, to take matters into our own hands, but true faith is demonstrated in our ability to trust God's timing, even when it doesn't align with our own desires. God is never in a hurry. He has eternity in His hands, and His plans are never rushed. He knows that the best things take time. The things that are built on a solid foundation, the things that will last, are not created overnight. Patience allows God to do His deep work in us, shaping our character, strengthening our faith, and preparing us for what lies ahead. Every delay, every moment of waiting is part of a process that is building something far greater than we can see. God is not just concerned with the destination, He is deeply invested in who we become along the way. Faith is what allows us to wait with confidence. It's easy to have faith when everything is moving according to our plans, but real faith is tested in the waiting. It's in those moments where we don't see immediate results, where it feels like God is silent, that our faith is truly stretched. Do we trust that He is still in control, even when we can't see what He's doing? Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's believing that God is working all things together for good, even when our natural eyes see no movement. Patience teaches us to rely on God's wisdom instead of our own understanding. We may think we know what's best for us, but only God sees the full picture. He knows the right time for everything. Often the delay is because God is protecting us from something we are not yet ready to handle, or something that could harm us in the long run. What looks like a setback is often God's way of holding us back from a situation that isn't ready for us yet, or we are not ready for it. Patience allows us to trust that God's wisdom far exceeds our limited view. When we exercise patience and faith, we allow God to work in His perfect timing. We stop striving in our own strength and start resting in His promises. We learn to let go of the need to control outcomes, recognizing that His plan is not just for our good, but for His glory. Patience is the evidence of our trust in God's faithfulness, and faith is the assurance that His plan will unfold in the right way at the right time. Challenges are an inevitable part of life, but they serve a greater purpose than we often realize. God uses challenges not to harm us, but to shape and mold us into the people we need to be for the fulfillment of His purpose. When we encounter difficulties, it's easy to ask, why is this happening to me? But the question we should be asking is, what is God trying to develop in me through this? Challenges are divine tools for building our character, refining our hearts, and strengthening our resolve. Every challenge you face has a lesson hidden within it. Whether it's a trial, an obstacle, or a hardship, there is something God wants to teach you. Something He wants to draw out of you that you might not have discovered otherwise. Growth often happens in the most uncomfortable seasons. We don't grow when things are easy and everything is going our way. We grow when we are stretched, tested, and pushed beyond our comfort zone. God allows these challenges because He knows that we can handle them and that they are essential for our development. Challenges reveal our true character. It's easy to have faith when everything is smooth, but it's in the storms of life that our faith is truly tested. How we respond to adversity says a lot about our level of trust in God. Do we give up when things get tough, or do we press on? Knowing that God is with us in the midst of the challenge, these moments reveal what is really inside of us, and they show us where we need to grow. God is not just concerned about getting us through the challenge, He's concerned about who we become as a result of it. God uses challenges to prepare us for greater responsibility. The bigger the purpose, the bigger the challenges you will face. God knows that you need to be equipped to handle the weight of the calling He has placed on your life. Just like gold is refined in the fire, our character is refined through challenges. Each trial is like a training ground, preparing you for the next level. Without these challenges, you wouldn't have the strength, the wisdom, or the resilience required to fulfill the purpose God has designed for you. Every great leader, every person who has achieved something significant in life has faced challenges. The difference between those who succeed and those who fall away is not the absence of challenges, but their ability to endure through them. God's plan for your life requires endurance, and endurance is built through facing difficulties head on. It's in the face of adversity that you discover your true strength, your real potential, and the depths of your faith in God. Challenges also teach us to depend on God more deeply. Often when things are going well, we can become self-reliant, believing we have everything under control. But when challenges come, we are reminded of our need for God. It's in those moments of difficulty that we are driven to our knees, seeking His wisdom, His strength, and His guidance. Challenges deepen our relationship with Him because they force us to lean on Him in ways we might not have otherwise. Through every challenge, God is drawing us closer to Himself and preparing us for the greater things He has in store. God's plan for your life is not random, it is purposeful and intentional. From the moment you were created, there was a divine purpose attached to your existence. God doesn't do anything without purpose, and that includes you. He has designed you with a specific calling, gifts, and abilities that are meant to fulfill a unique role in this world. But discovering and walking in that purpose requires alignment with His plan. Everything God does is connected to your purpose, and every experience you go through is part of the process of revealing and fulfilling that purpose. Your purpose is the reason you exist, and God's plan is the roadmap to fulfilling that purpose. We often go through life trying to figure out what we're meant to do, where we should go, and how we can make a difference. But the truth is, God already knows. He has already written the story of your life, and He has orchestrated events and opportunities that are designed to bring you into alignment with the purpose for which you were created. The challenge is learning to trust His plan, even when it doesn't make sense, because His plan is always designed with your purpose in mind. Purpose is what gives your life meaning. Without purpose, you can achieve many things, but still feel unfulfilled. That's because fulfillment comes from doing what you were created to do, from living out the purpose God has placed within you. His plan for your life is not about random success or fleeting accomplishments. It's about aligning your actions, your decisions, and your entire life with the reason He put you on this earth. When you walk in alignment with His plan, you begin to experience the true joy and fulfillment that comes from living out your purpose. God's plan is designed to not only fulfill your purpose, but to also impact those around you. Your purpose is never just about you. It's always connected to the bigger picture, to the people you are meant to influence, to the lives you are meant to touch. When you are in alignment with God's plan, your life becomes a blessing to others. You begin to see how every experience, every lesson, every challenge was preparing you to make a difference in the lives of those around you. God's purpose for you is bigger than your individual success. It is about advancing His kingdom and fulfilling His will on earth. Walking in God's purpose requires us to surrender our own plans. We often have our own ideas about what we want to do with our lives, but those plans can sometimes be in conflict with God's purpose for us. When we submit to His plan, we may have to let go of certain dreams or ambitions that don't align with His purpose. But in doing so, we find something far greater. God's purpose is always better than anything we could imagine for ourselves. He sees the end from the beginning and knows exactly what you need to fulfill the destiny He has for you. Fulfilling your purpose requires obedience to God's leading. There will be times when his plan takes you in directions you didn't expect, when he asks you to do things that don't make sense in the moment. But every act of obedience brings you closer to the fulfillment of your purpose. It is through obedience that we align ourselves with his plan, and it is in that alignment that we discover the fullness of what we were created to be. Letting go of the need to control outcomes is one of the hardest lessons we have to learn in life, yet it's crucial to walking in alignment with God's plan. As humans, we have a natural desire to be in control, to direct our own steps, and to make things happen according to our own timeline. We plan, we strategize, and we try to orchestrate the outcomes we want. But when you're following God's plan, control is something you must surrender. You can't trust God and control everything at the same time. Trusting him means releasing the need to know how things will work out and allowing him to guide you, even when the path is unclear. God's wisdom far exceeds ours. He knows what is best for us, and his understanding is infinite. While we may see only a few steps ahead, God sees the entire journey. He knows the end from the beginning and every twist and turn in between. When we try to control the outcomes of our lives, we are essentially saying we know better than God. But real trust is letting go and allowing him to lead, knowing that his plan is perfect, even when it doesn't make sense to us. It's realizing that control is an illusion. None of us can control the future. Only God can. Releasing control doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means taking action where you can, but leaving the results to God. It's about doing what you know to do and then trusting God with the outcome. When we take steps in faith, we're saying to God, I trust you with where this will lead. Sometimes those steps don't lead to immediate results. And that's when we're tempted to take matters into our own hands. But God's way is always better, and his timing is always perfect. What he asks of us is not control, but trust. When we hold on too tightly to our plans, we can miss what God is trying to do. There are times when we're so focused on making something happen that we can't see the new direction God is pointing us in. Sometimes he closes a door, but because we're so determined to force it open, we miss the new opportunity he's prepared for us. Letting go of control means being willing to walk away from what you thought you wanted in order to embrace what God has for you. It means trusting that even when doors close, even when things don't go as planned, God is still in control and working for your good. Trusting God with the outcomes also frees us from unnecessary stress and anxiety. When we're constantly trying to control everything, we carry a burden that we were never meant to bear. But when we release that control to God, we experience peace. It's a peace that comes from knowing that the creator of the universe, the one who holds all things in his hands, is in charge of your life. No matter what happens, no matter what uncertainties lie ahead, you can rest in the assurance that God's plan is unfolding exactly as it should. Letting go of control also deepens our relationship with God. It's in those moments of surrender that we truly begin to rely on him. When we no longer have the answers, when we're not sure how things will work out, that's when we draw closer to God. Surrendering control forces us to depend on his wisdom, his strength, and his guidance. It shifts our focus from what we can do to what he can do, and in doing so, we learn to trust him more deeply. Understanding that God's plan is not just for us, but for his greater purpose is essential for fulfilling our destinies. Often we approach life with a focus on our individual goals, dreams, and aspirations. We think about what we want to achieve, the successes we hope to attain, and the impact we wish to make. While it's natural to have personal ambitions, we must remember that God's plan is woven into the fabric of a much larger picture. His vision encompasses the entirety of creation and the intricate ways in which our lives are connected to others. When we align ourselves with God's plan, we begin to see our individual purpose within the context of his kingdom. We realize that our lives are not just about us, they are about serving a higher calling that impacts the world around us. God has designed us to play specific roles in his grand design. This means that our actions, decisions, and even our challenges can have far-reaching effects that we may never fully comprehend. Understanding this connection shifts our perspective from a self-centered view to one that embraces a collective purpose. Every blessing you receive is not only for your benefit, but is also meant to flow through you to bless others. God blesses us so that we can be a blessing. When we recognize that our purpose is linked to the greater good, we become more intentional about how we use our gifts and resources. Our success is not just for personal gain, it's about how we can uplift others and contribute to the advancement of God's kingdom on earth. This understanding empowers us to be more generous, more compassionate, and more willing to serve. Moreover, embracing the idea that God's plan is for a greater purpose helps us navigate challenges with resilience. When we encounter difficulties, it's easy to become disheartened and question why things aren't going our way. However, if we view these challenges through the lens of God's larger purpose, we can find strength in knowing that there is a reason behind our trials. God is working all things together for good, and often those challenges are shaping us for a greater mission. In the midst of our personal struggles, we must remind ourselves that God is preparing us not only for our own future, but also for the future of those He has called us to impact. Our growth in character, faith, and perseverance during tough times equips us to serve others more effectively. We become instruments of His love and grace in a world that desperately needs it. Our ability to withstand trials is often the very testimony that can encourage someone else going through a similar situation. When we realize that God's plan extends beyond our individual lives, we develop a sense of responsibility toward others. We become stewards of the gifts and opportunities He has given us. This sense of responsibility drives us to seek ways to contribute, to mentor, to encourage, and to lift others up. We understand that our lives are part of a greater narrative that God is writing, and we play a significant role in that story. Ultimately, recognizing that God's plan is larger than our individual journeys invites us to be part of something magnificent. It calls us to live with intention and purpose, to embrace the challenges and blessings that come our way, and to fully engage in the lives of others. Our lives become a testimony to the greatness of God's plan as we surrender our individual ambitions for the collective mission of His kingdom. It's about living a life that reflects His love and purpose in everything we do. Understanding that faith and trust require action is essential for anyone seeking to fulfill God's plan in their life. Faith is not a passive state, it is an active force that compels us to step out of our comfort zones and into the unknown. When God reveals His plans to us, it is our responsibility to respond with obedience. Faith without action is dead. It is our actions that demonstrate the authenticity of our faith. God is not just looking for people who believe in His promises, He is seeking those who are willing to act on them. When we truly trust God, we take steps toward the goals He has set before us, even if the path is unclear. It's easy to talk about faith, to declare that we trust God's plan, but the real test comes when we are called to move. Trusting God means we take risks, we venture into unfamiliar territory, and we embrace the challenges that come with following Him. It's about stepping out of the boat like Peter did when he walked on water. He didn't wait for the perfect moment, he acted on the word of Jesus. In doing so, he experienced a miracle, but it required him to first take a step of faith. Each action we take in response to God's calling deepens our relationship with Him. As we move forward in obedience, we begin to see His faithfulness manifest in our lives. When we take action based on our faith, we create space for God to work. Our actions become an invitation for God to move in powerful ways. When we remain inactive, we limit what God can do in and through us. He is waiting for us to align our actions with His will, and when we do, we open ourselves up to a flow of divine possibilities. Moreover, taking action in faith helps us develop the perseverance needed for our journey. Life is filled with obstacles, and when we act in faith, we often face resistance. But it's through these challenges that we cultivate resilience. Each time we push through adversity, we grow stronger in our ability to trust God. We learn to rely on Him more fully, recognizing that our strength comes from Him alone. This perseverance becomes a crucial component of our character and prepares us for the greater things God has in store. In addition to strengthening our faith, our actions also serve as a witness to others. When people see us stepping out in faith, they are inspired to do the same. Our actions have the power to influence those around us. When we trust God and act on His promises, we shine a light that can guide others toward Him. Our lives become testimonies of His goodness and faithfulness, encouraging others to take their own steps of faith. It's also important to remember that action doesn't always mean big, dramatic steps. Sometimes it's the small, consistent actions that lead to significant change. God is not necessarily looking for grand gestures. He is looking for willing hearts. The little things matter: praying for someone, sharing an encouraging word, or taking time to serve others. These small acts of obedience accumulate over time and can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Each small step taken in faith moves us closer to the fulfillment of God's plan. As we act on our faith, we must remain flexible and open to God's leading. Our journey may not unfold exactly as we expect, and that's okay. God may redirect our paths, and it's our job to follow His lead. Sometimes the actions we take will lead us down unexpected roads, but every step is part of His divine plan. Being responsive to God means that we stay attuned to His voice, ready to adjust our course as He directs. Ultimately, trust and action go hand in hand. When we truly believe in God's plan, we can't help but respond with action. Faith compels us to move, to step out, and to embrace the unknown. It's in these moments of action that we discover the fullness of what God has for us, and we begin to see the incredible ways He works in our lives and the lives of those around us. Embracing the journey of trusting God's plan is fundamental to our spiritual growth and fulfillment. Trusting God is not just about believing in His existence, it's about placing our lives, our dreams, and our futures in His capable hands. This journey requires us to move beyond the superficial understanding of faith and to delve into a deep, transformative relationship with our Creator. It's an active engagement, a daily commitment to align our hearts and minds with His divine will. The journey begins with recognizing that God's plan often unfolds gradually. We live in a culture that craves instant results and immediate gratification. However, God operates on a different timeline. His plan may not always reveal itself all at once. Instead, it often unfolds piece by piece, step by step. This gradual revelation requires patience and a willingness to wait on Him. Trusting God means understanding that He is not bound by our timelines or expectations. His wisdom is perfect and His timing is impeccable. Throughout this journey, we will encounter moments of uncertainty and doubt. It is natural to question, to wonder why certain things happen the way they do. In these moments, we must remember that our understanding is limited. God sees the bigger picture. When we face trials, it's easy to become discouraged and lose sight of His purpose. But these challenges are often part of the process. They are designed to strengthen our faith, to refine our character, and to prepare us for what lies ahead. Embracing this journey means trusting that every experience, whether good or bad, is working together for our good. Another critical aspect of this journey is learning to listen to God's voice. In a world filled with noise and distractions, it can be challenging to discern His guidance. However, developing a relationship with God means making time for prayer, meditation, and reflection. It's about tuning our hearts to His frequency. When we seek Him earnestly, He promises that we will find Him. Listening for His voice allows us to align our actions with His will, ensuring that we are moving in the right direction. As we trust God's plan, we also learn the importance of community. God has designed us to live in relationship with others, and surrounding ourselves with like-minded believers can be incredibly encouraging. Sharing our journeys, our struggles, and our victories helps us to see God's faithfulness in different perspectives. We draw strength from one another, and we become reminders of God's love and purpose. In times of doubt, having a supportive community can bolster our faith and remind us of God's promises. Moreover, embracing the journey involves a willingness to let go of control. We often hold tightly to our plans, believing we know what's best for our lives. But true trust means surrendering our need to control every outcome. It means releasing our ambitions and desires into God's hands and allowing Him to lead. When we let go, we create space for God to work in ways we never imagined. Surrender does not mean passivity. Rather, it is an active choice to allow God to be in charge of our lives. Finally, the journey of trusting God's plan is one of continual growth. As we walk with Him, we become more attuned to His heart and purpose. Our faith deepens, and our understanding of His love expands. We begin to see ourselves not just as individuals with personal desires, but as part of His greater mission. We recognize that our lives are instruments for His glory, and that every moment is an opportunity to reflect His goodness. In every season, trusting God's plan is an invitation to experience the fullness of life He offers. It's about embarking on an adventure filled with purpose, joy, and transformation. When we embrace this journey, we discover that trusting God is not a destination, but a continuous process of growth, surrender, and faith. We learn to walk confidently, knowing that He is guiding us every step of the way, leading us toward a future that is far greater than anything we could imagine. In the grand tapestry of life, trusting God's plan is not merely an act of faith, it is a way of life that transforms our hearts and shapes our destinies. As we embrace the journey, we learn to see beyond our immediate circumstances, recognizing that every moment is part of a divine narrative crafted by the Creator. When we yield our ambitions, surrender our need for control, and step out in faith, we align ourselves with the purpose for which we were created. Each step we take, grounded in trust, leads us deeper into a relationship with God that enriches our lives and impacts those around us. Through the trials and triumphs, we discover that His faithfulness is unwavering and that His timing is perfect. Our actions, driven by faith, become instruments of change, and we become catalysts for His love and grace in the world. As we navigate the uncertainties of life, let us remember that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. God's plan encompasses not only our individual journeys, but also the collective calling to reflect His glory and bring hope to those we encounter. Trusting Him is an invitation to live boldly, to embrace the unknown, and to find joy in the unfolding of His divine purpose. Let us move forward with confidence, knowing that we walk in His light and that every step taken in faith leads us closer to the fulfillment of His perfect plan.